What up, guys? The long wait of our NBA Power Rankings video is finally here. We're doing this as of January 24th, so all the games up to that date. And, a lot of interesting things have happened since the NBA in our last month since we've made a video. You got the Grizzlies surging, and then the Jazz, surprisingly taking a few steps back. Both of those are in our top 10, but where is going to be the big question. But first, we're going to start off with our 30th ranked team, the Orlando Magic.
Yep. So we have moving down only one spot, the not too surprising Orlando Magic. The only thing I'm going to say here, as a Michigan fan myself, talk about the Wagner brothers. Kind of been popping off lately. I feel like Franz has been a big, rookie this year, especially in the draft. A lot of people didn't really know how he would fall, even though he was projected to go early, which he did. Guy's been showing out. Guy's been showing up. I think they're going to make some moves here before the trade deadline. I know Terrence Ross has been in that conversation, but I don't know. I feel like as an Orlando Magic fan, yeah, it sucks. The record's not good. Nothing's really going great, but at the same time, things could change around really quickly for these guys.
And at 29th, we got Motorcade and his Pistons team. It has been pretty clear since, Cade Cunningham has really taken over the starting role that he is going to be our guy for the future. Like, there's no doubt in my mind this Pistons team will build to win around him. And to do so, you're going to have to trade Jeremiah Grant. It sucks facing that reality, but this year is the best year to trade. He's about to be healthy, about to come back soon. And I think before the trade deadline, he will get dealt. Hopefully to the Bulls. I think that'd be a great fit for them. And the Bulls, I think, have the best to offer back to the Pistons as well. First round and Patrick Williams. I think that'd be a solid addition. Getting young pieces for the future to build with Cade. But other than that, the Pistons just have been hurt all year. And I think, they're starting to play better now, obviously, because they got Olynyk back and they've been playing really well. Beef Stew's been in and out in the lineup. Cade has been really the only consistent guy since after the first month of the year. And I think now this Pistons team is going to be one of those teams late in the year that you're not going to want to face because they're going to have something, going into next year.
For sure. So next up, coming in 28th, we got the OKC Thunder. Same situation. You got a bunch of young guys trying to hoop out here. You got Shai Gilgeous, you got Lou Dort, just a bunch of young guys with a lot of, availability. We've said the same thing. These guys, they got to play their drafts right. The one thing I will say, I think that's worth noting is they have like 24 million in cap space open right now. So, I mean, not that I would say OKC is like a big factor for where someone would want to be right now, but at the same time, they could target a lot of people right here. They have a lot of availability, a lot of room to play with. These draft picks could be appealing to some people. So another situation like the Magic, I feel like, you can only look for the future when it comes to the Thunder because, give it 3-4 years and these guys can be contenders for sure.
And at 27th, moving up one spot, we got the Houston Rockets, who have really been playing some great basketball as of late. Pretty close games, dating back to the start of this year. They've kind of turned the page on their, terrible year last year. That 4-10 record obviously doesn't show how good this team is playing as well. Close losses in this week, but having Christian Wood back is finally, what this team has been missing, because we know that last year they signed him for the big contract to be the big guy and to lead this team. And with him off the floor, it really showed that this team was struggling. But they got Kevin Porter Jr., solid new guy in the league, Jalen Green, obviously. And I think just those two guys are going to be the future in this Rockets team. But what else can you build around that is going to be the question for this Rockets franchise. Even, at this year, that Eric Gordon will probably get dealt to a contender. So what can you get back for him is going to be the big, thing of their season.
Coming in 26, we got the Sacramento Kings. This team hasn't really done much this year. In the past few years, it's been the same story over and over. One person to talk about, though, is definitely Harrison Barnes. I mean, this guy's been in the league for a little while, but he's continuing to put up very consistent numbers, especially this year. I would definitely look for that name, before the trade deadline. He could help a lot of teams, especially those contenders. And, we haven't talked about him much this year, but even Marvin Bagley, I think it was against the Rockets, went absolutely off the other night. And I mean, that's only good news. This guy's been kind of quiet since he got drafted, but has no reason to not put up those type of numbers every night. So this team's kind of hit or miss when I'm thinking about it and stuff like that. The Lakers a little inconsistent, but they've showed out against them a couple times. De'Aaron Fox still could be that dude. Throw his name out there. A lot of teams are going to want a guy like that on their team too. So I think this team has to decide whether or not they really want to just go to a rebuild, because they have guys, they just can't win games is what I think it comes down to.
And in 25th, we got the Indiana Pacers, who immediately fell off since the new year. Things were looking okay for them going into this year, and then it's just been a rough stretch. But at least they have Sabonis. He's pretty much been the only bright spot this year, playing in, I think, almost every game this year. And having Brogdon, for 2/3 of the season. And then after that, I mean, LeVert, he's been really good, but he's played 2/3 of the season. And there's really been no consistency other than Miles Turner and Sabonis. And when you don't have any guards, that's how are you going to get those guys, your big guys, the ball? And that's really been the concern this year for the Pacers, because, they even had to have Lance Stevenson step up, and no one thought that name would be even in the league. But thanks to COVID protocols and everything, he got his shot and, found a home again in Indiana. But after that, I mean, I'm looking at the roster right here. I think there's been 48 different players so far that have played for the Pacers. And I feel like that's got to be, the most in the league so far. So super inconsistent from this Pacer team. And chemistry wise, I don't really think there's none there other than those core group of guys.
It's coming in 24th. We've got the San Antonio Spurs, another team that I guess has been struggling a little bit. Might be Greg Pops probably last year, if I would say so. Just got involved with a little trade action themselves. I think they sent Bryn Forbes, I think it was to the Nuggets, I believe. Mm-hmm. But I think, the main guy to talk about is, you say DeJounte Murray, I think is his name. I don't want to butcher it, but that guy's legit. That guy's definitely someone that you want your organization built around. He's putting up consistent numbers this year. Definitely something to look forward to in the future. But this is also kind of a winning culture of a program. They haven't really had much since the Tony Parker era, when they had Ginobili, Tim Duncan and all that. But at the same time, even with Greg Popovich, this team knows how to win games. So I think, you land a couple guys. They got rid of DeMar, but even when they had him, they were winning some games here and there. So I wouldn't totally count them out. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of progress. But I don't know. There's a lot of upside here on this team.
In 23rd, I think this is just a perfect spot for these Pelicans. They're right there for that play-in game for the playoffs. And obviously the key question is Zion. Like, what's going to happen there? I mean, nobody knows at this point. I don't even think they know. And the Pelicans team, 18-28, it may look bad on paper right now, but they're, right now they're only, I believe it's a few games back, 2 or 3 games back for that play-in game. And, with Brandon Ingram and Valanciunas, Devonta Graham, all those guys, if they can stay healthy and keep playing, and then they add Zion, let's say, all-star break or a little after, this team definitely could make a run and, squeak into the playoffs for sure. But once again, it's all going to come down to Zion and how healthy he can be and if he can actually play this year. But if he doesn't play, I think the Pelicans maybe get the 10 seed in the play-in tournament at best. They'll probably exit after that first game anyways.
Next up, we've got the Portland Trailblazers. This team's been rough this year. They've been in rough condition. Dame just ruled out for the year. He's getting, I think, the abdominal surgery, I want to say. But I guess the only good thing to talk about, I'm definitely not a fan of this guy. I think he's been the problem in the playoffs the last few years. But Nurkic has been putting up pretty consistent numbers lately. I think he's got averaged like 18 in the last couple of weeks with at least like 15 rebounds, I want to say. I don't know. This guy's balling out a little bit. I think Simons is his name. He's been banging threes left and right, but this team just can't really seem to figure it out. And it's almost a little tiring whether or not they're going to make moves. They're not going to make moves. Dame's a Portland guy, but it's really not working out. CJ McCollum can't do this on his own. like I said, I don't think Nurkic is that guy either. So I'm really starting to think that this team's got to just kind of take a step back, realize that it's not working and they're not contenders at all. So I think some moves got to be made, maybe a rebuild. But I'd like to see a lot of these guys on this roster be successful for other teams too.
And at 21, we got the Atlanta Hawks. And all I can say right now is don't let these Hawks get hot. They've been very inconsistent this year. Currently, right now, they are on a 4-game win streak with wins over the Bucks, Timberwolves, Heat, and Hornets. All teams in the top, obviously none of them, you haven't seen any yet. So they're better than the Hawks right now. And they got games coming up against the Kings, who are all right, just teams that are in the same class as the Hawks. And, they have 4 straight at home too. So if you win all 4, you're, winning 8 games and you're right back at 500, right back in this thing. And obviously when you have Ice Trey on your team, the guy that's putting up 28 this year, a very quiet 28. I don't see how this Hawks team misses the playoffs. Like there's no way. In the East, I feel like there's a lot of pretenders in the East right now, just because it's still so early in the season, which is crazy, is it just being a little over halfway over. And I don't know, this Hawks team, we saw it last year. If they get hot, you do not want to play them. And I think it's going to be the case again this year, and probably squeak in, honestly, around that play-in tournament or a 6 or a 5 seed. When it all comes down to it.
It's coming in 20th, another very inconsistent team, I guess, that kind of just fell off, is the Washington Wizards. Granted, their coach, I think, just came out of COVID protocols. He's been out for some time. I'm sure that adjustment's been difficult. But, this is another one of those teams that it's a risky business, but you got to really rely on the trade deadline based off of whether or not you want to contend for a ring or not. I think the most open trade, even though they just acquired him recently, is Spencer Dinwiddie. The guy's been passed around the league here and there, but I mean, he's a pretty promising guy too, and his value's still up pretty high. Kyle Kuzma's outputting numbers this year up that we really haven't seen before, which is impressive. Montrezl Harrell, same goes. So this team has potential for sure, but I would say something like the Hawks, you don't want them to get hot, and you don't want them to get one more guy that really could put them over the edge, because obviously everybody knows about Bradley Beal. What he's willing to do on almost any given night is go absolutely off. He can make your team go from losing a game to winning a game on his own. So one of those teams that I guess we got them ranked 20th now, but they could be playing for a play-in spot. They could be playing in the playoffs here in the future too, winning some games. So you never know with the Washington Wizards.
And at 19th, we have the LA Clippers, who, yes, are behind their in-town rival, the LA Lakers. And I mean, Kawhi, Paul George, where are you guys? Kawhi hasn't seen 1 second on the court yet this year still, and Paul George has played half of the year. So I think this is another team that if they can get healthy, you don't want to play them come playoff time. And Piston legend Reggie Jackson is single-handedly carrying this Clippers team to this, mediocre record. And he's averaging 17, career best, obviously, assists 4, a little over 4, career best. And he's really stepped into that role, after losing some key pieces as well in free agency. He just decided to come back and really be that guy. And I think they are very thankful that he came back. That veteran piece for, the young leaders like Terrence Mann, who could be a really good piece for this Clippers team in the upcoming years. But right now, not really much to report on this Clippers team other than, they're squeaking by at best, just waiting for their stars to be fully healthy.
So another team we've, had jump up and down in the rankings, seems like they've had problems here and there, is the New York Knicks, recently requiring Cam Reddish. They're reunited with former teammate at Duke, RJ Barrett. Big deal for sure. This team also could be good. We've seen Cardiac Kemba. We've seen him go off, got moved to the bench, back in the starting role. The guy's still legit. I don't care what anyone says, but the struggle right now is Julius Randle. This guy has definitely been struggling lately, not putting up the numbers that we saw all of last year. Everyone was saying most improved player, potential MVP candidate at one point. He just really hasn't got the job done this year. And, you have I think it's Nerlens Noel coming off the bench. He's been kind of here and there, iffy, hurt here and there with soreness and stuff. Another team that I feel like has the potential. They definitely have the fan base, the support, but they're just not really getting it done right now. You still got Obi Toppin, a lot of upside with him too. So I mean, we'll see what they can figure out, what they can do. But I think the Cam Reddish move was huge for these guys for sure.
And oops, I think it froze. 17th, there we go. We got the LA Lakers, and you could really make the debate that this could be LeBron's best year of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he's on a mediocre team at best. But once again, who is it to blame? You got to blame LeBron, because obviously he's the GM, and he wanted Russ, he wanted AD again. Come back, let's do it. And he wants Tucker, he wants Malik Monk, which is not a bad signing. Sign Carmelo,
Mm-hmm.
and these guys, they're obviously these big names, but they're not producing to what we all thought they would be. I think realistically, we were all thinking that this record would probably be around 35-15 right now. Pretty comfortable, in the West, like a 4 or a 3, and they're just not getting it done. And I think this team, will avoid a play-in game, I think. But it's gonna be a tough one if, depending on what they do at the deadline. But I don't know. I think come playoff times, LeBron's not going to have his best in him, because he's going to be using it in all 82 games, and that adds up over time. And obviously Russell Westbrook, I think he's played in every single game so far this year, but you really don't notice that he's out there because he's not pulling Russell Westbrook numbers. But, I think it's all going to come down to Anthony Davis and his health. He's about to return either tonight. I think he returns tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all going to come back on him. And, LeBron and AD and Russ, if they can all figure it out, get that chemistry going, I really don't see anyone in the West that could honestly stop this team if they're on their A game at night.
Coming in at 16th, we've got the Toronto Raptors. So we'll start off with Fred VanVleet. He has been filling up the stat sheet this year. Guy deserved his contract, deserves his respect. One of those sleeper guys that you're still not going to hear too much about, but has been doing great things this year. I think Siakam had some COVID protocol issues. I don't know if he tested positive or what not, but he came back. That's always a good sign for this team. And then Scotty Barnes definitely is that dude. Huge upside here. I'm still not going to count this team out. They know how to win games. They know the culture. And then OG Anunoby, I think, he's been filling up the stat sheet too. So there's a lot of guys on this roster that you're not going to hear about on a night-to-night basis. But there's also a lot of guys on this roster that can fill out the stat sheet, win games, on their own. Just two people. It doesn't take much for these guys to get rolling. With an 8-7 record since we last talked about them, but give them a week or so and they can go on a win streak. They can go off at any given moment.
At 15th, 8-8 since our last ranking, dead even at 500. Got the Boston Celtics, and this team, I mean, they're playing 500 ball at best, because some nights they look like they're a top 3 team in the East. Other times they look like they could get beat by the Magic. So I mean, if they can find consistency, I think that's the key for them going in the All-Star break and beyond. But I think the bright spot on this team has been Robert Williams. Learning from Al Horford, obviously league veteran, everybody knows who Al Horford is, has only helped him. Leading the team in rebounds, 9.2, Robert Williams is. And I think he is going to be the key piece for the Celtics if they really want to make a run, because we know they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart, but it always seems to come down to the big men come playoff time. And having Al Horford and Robert Williams, I'd say it gives you a good shot to make a run.
Up next, we've got the Timberwolves, who recently had the big Anthony Edwards scare with the knee injury. A lot of people were really worried with the severeness to that. Thankfully, I think he's already about to return back. I think it was just, a tweak or something like that, which is always a good news because Anthony Edwards, another one of those guys that you're going to probably hear about for a long time. With that being said, Karl Anthony Towns, we still know about him. Obviously, I personally think he's one of the best centers in the league still right now. The problem is the guards, in my opinion. You know, you have Pat Bev, kind of a scrappy player. Everyone knows about him, but I mean, he's not going to go out and drop a bunch of numbers. But D'Angelo Russell's the same way. You know, you really don't know what you're going to get out of him in any given night. He had his one crazy year in Brooklyn, went over to Minnesota, and he's just kind of been mediocre since then. So this team knows how to win games. We've seen them win games. They've won big games, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like an 8-6 ranking since we last talked about him is pretty confident, pretty solid for these guys. So I think you add one more piece to this roster, you know, like Taurean Prince, minutes have been really inconsistent for him too. He's kind of starting to put it together a little bit, but I don't really think they have an outlook right now. They just kind of got to figure it out. But 14th is pretty good for the Timberwolves.
At 13th, we got the Nuggets, who, you know, it's kind of surprising to find them down here after last year's performance, you know, with the MVP Jokic, and you know he's putting up those MVP numbers again, leading the whole team in the three big categories: points, rebounds, assists. But I think the biggest piece here is Aaron Gordon. Most improved player right now, in my opinion, is Aaron Gordon. He's really been the second-hand guy for this Nuggets team. And, you know, Jokic obviously has a good night every night, but where's your production coming from other than that? And Gordon's averaging a little over 14 a game, you know, getting his minutes. And one thing I can say about this Nuggets team is they do have consistency in who they're putting out there. Their best five players have been out there, it seems like, every night. Besides Jamal Murray, obviously, because, you know, he's still hurt. So when they get Murray back and MPJ, I mean, this team is going to be scary. And I think the All-Star break is really going to be when this team, you know, turns it up a notch. And I would not be surprised if, you know, after this video, you guys see the Nuggets in the top 10, because I think this is a team, you know, if you're looking at betting right now that could make a run and has some pretty high odds, I think the Nuggets would be your best bet right now.
So up next, we have the Charlotte Hornets. Obviously, we could start off with LaMelo Ball. This guy's solidified NBA star. I think there was a little question behind it after the draft, but this kid has clearly solidified himself. He's going to be in the NBA for a long time. He's going to be an all-star. Miles Bridges, he's about to get a bag after this year. The guy's been going nuts. Got a 3-point shot now. Plays outstanding defense. You know, another star on their team. The two problems I'm going to say are, one, the Kelly Oubre move was great when it first happened until he just has not performed this year. He has been nowhere to be seen, no numbers, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a confidence thing. Number two is Gordon Hayward's injuries are still a little bit consistent. It seems like he's out here and there with this or that, still has some foot injuries here and again, I think. And obviously we know about the broken ankle that happened in Boston. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of upside though. You know, Terry Rozier, I was questionable with the contract they gave him. I think I said in our first video, I wasn't sure if it was well deserved or not, but it is. This guy runs this offense. He clearly knows what to do with the ball. He's tough to guard, opens a lot of space up. The Charlotte Hornets team is definitely dangerous. You know, they also have Cody Martin, another shooter. It just seems like they have a lot of pieces together when everyone is working well, everyone is confident, everyone is making shots. They're one of the better teams in the NBA right now, for sure.
And at 11th, we get the Dallas Mavericks, 12-4 since our last ranking. Really, you know, turning the page on the, it's only Luka, you know, kind of team. And Jalen Brunson is a name, you know, that might be flown around in the deadlines, depending on what the Mavs decide to do. And in that deal is back to the Pistons. Brunson is a name that could be going to Detroit for that Jeremiah Grant. But then again, you know, I believe he's a free agent after this year, and he's going to get his bag after this year. So in the Pistons sense, they probably shouldn't do that trade, but Mavericks, you know, I think you got to go and make a trade like that, just because this has probably been your best year with Luka, in all honesty, at least through these 47 games. and he's not even playing right now. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about what to do, what Mark Cuban should do here, but I think right now you got to stand put and just kind of evaluate from game to game. But give them credit for, winning 12 out of their last 16 since our video. And I mean, props to them. I mean, I'm kind of speechless here for the Mavs because I don't really know what to say just because I didn't think they'd be up here.
Mm-hmm. Coming up next, we got the Philadelphia 76ers with the 10th ranking. I mean, that's impressive with all the Ben Simmons issues they've had, who also just announced that if he does not get traded pre-trade deadline, he's done the whole year. He's planned on sitting out. He will not join the 76ers. But on top of that, Joel Embiid has been nothing but excellent lately. This guy has been solidified. He's that guy, one of the best centers, if not the best in the NBA. He knows how to shoot, defend, post up. This guy's been playing insane. Danny Green coming back off the injury. Seth Curry, I think, was out for a few games. Matisse Thybulle was also out for a few games. But, I mean, I feel like this is one of those teams that just works well together. They know what they're doing. They know how to score. They know how to defend. But I think the biggest thing to look out for is, especially with James Harden recently reporting about how he's unhappy in Brooklyn, they've made it very clear that their sights are on him. Their sights are on getting James Harden in Philadelphia, sending Ben Simmons over to New York. And I mean, if that happens, I don't see how you can't count this team out of an NBA championship, because another one of those teams where even, with the Ben Simmons issues, I think if they do have Ben Simmons, they're that much better. He's a bit of a toxic to the team, but just skill wise, even though the guy doesn't have a shot or a free throw, they're dangerous. This team is solid. This team is missing one piece right now, and I think they're bound to get it. They're bound to get one more person, and then they're going to go to the NBA championship in the next 2 years.
And at 9, we got the Utah Jazz making a huge fall down. And this is in part to losing their last 4 out of their 5, with their only win coming against the Pistons. They lost to the Rockets, lost to the Lakers, and then you lost 2 close games to the Warriors and Suns. So it really doesn't show this Jazz team, really falling. But unfortunately, there's just been too many hotter teams right now in the NBA that have passed the Jazz. They've been kind of floating around this 10 games above 500. But you can thank Bogdan for this. It's kind of interesting that you're like, wait, it's not Donovan Mitchell or Gobert. No, it's Bogdan, who's really been putting up this year, averaging 18 points a game, which is, I believe, a career best so far. Mm-hmm. And he's really turned it on for this Jazz team. And, losing, I think, not losing, but Conley's production from last year compared to this year is a complete different story. And he's really kind of helped Conley, develop, at least points wise, get those points back. And I think once again, that's just what makes this Jazz team so good, is they're a team. I think this is, if you want to watch team basketball, watch a Jazz game. They were like the Spurs back when they had Duncan and Manu and Tony. They always just share the ball, quick, here. And that's exactly what the Jazz formula is. You know what it is, but they still can go in there and beat you. And I think they're going to keep rolling with that until the trade deadline. And honestly, I could see the Jazz here making a move, probably for a forward, just for some depth wise, because they have Rudy Gay. But after that, I mean, there's really no power forward that I can trust on this Jazz team. So definitely look to them, make a little move. Like Kelly Olynyk could be a very good piece for the Jazz from the Pistons if, they're looking to kind of go all in at the deadline.
So I think the most surprising move of the entire season is the Cleveland Cavaliers playing winning basketball. I never would have expected them to be top 10, top 15 in the NBA this year. But I mean, they just have a bunch of guys, recently acquiring Rondo. That was huge. This guy is one of the most veteran, skilled point guards in the NBA. He knows how to read defenses like it's just reading a book. It's so simple for that guy. The Lauri Markkanen move, you haven't heard much about him since he left Chicago, but that's huge too. I know he's out right now, I think with a sprained ankle, I'm pretty sure, but Darius Garland, I know you mentioned him at the start of the year. That's your guy, and he's been getting it done. Evan Mobley struggling from the free throw line, but he's also putting up these numbers too. These guys are just playing winning basketball. Kevin Love, another veteran. He's kind of he talked about, I think, in an interview the other night, kind of changing his role just to like better the culture of the team, and obviously it's paying off. And they were talking about Colin Sexton at the start of the year was kind of a toxic. They literally called him a ball hog, and he gets hurt. And then these guys have just been going off ever since. So, I wouldn't expect Colin Sexton to stay on this team much longer. Unfortunate the guy got injured, but when you have your solidified star get hurt and then your team goes absolutely insane after that, I think that's definitely a message to be taken. I wouldn't expect him to be on the Cavaliers much longer, but kudos to these guys for winning games. I don't think anyone really expected them to be winning games like they have been. So, hopefully they keep it up, maybe get one more piece and keep contending.
And a team that you have been expecting to win all these games is this Brooklyn Nets team. The big three has finally played together since our last video, but how happy is the big three is the big question. Harden, reportedly saying he may want out. Like it could be just media stuff that they're putting out there, but it's reports and you can't just ignore it. You mentioned it to the Sixers, that could be a good piece. Maybe Thibault, that could be and Simmons, that could be a decent trade. But we'll talk about what they do have. And what they do have is Patty Mills. This guy has been in the league for, I don't know, at least 5-6 years, could be even more. And he's finally getting some recognition, still not enough recognition that he deserves to get, because we've said it, I think, almost every video about how good Patty Mills is, and we're going to keep saying it, because if they don't have him, if they just let Dinwiddie walk and they didn't sign a guard and was just praying that Kyrie played every game, this Nets team would be floating around 500 right now. You saw opening night, game one, Patty Mills comes out 4 for 4 threes to start the first quarter. And you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know he was on the team. Kind of one of those moves. And since that moment, he's really, relinquished in the I'll start at home, 6-man away mentality. And I think that's just what this, Nets team needs. He's played in every game, almost every game, I believe. And he's averaging 13.5 right now. And I can only see that going up, especially if Harden, they do deal him away at the deadline. I think Patty could step right in there and almost put up 20 a game. I think that's how confident I am in Patty this year. But I think if you're a Nets fan, no matter what happens at the deadline, I think you got to be happy with the roster around you. Nicholas Claxton has been way better than I think anybody would have thought. And LaMarcus Aldridge, coming out of retirement, has been really great there. But this Nets team, they find ways to win games. No matter how ugly or how big it is, they just win.
So coming up next, we got the Milwaukee Bucks, another expected team up here. I think the most recent news to talk about is, the whole Grayson Allen dilemma. This guy has kind of had issues. He's got a bit of a history, suspended for only one game. Debatably whether or not, the Caruso foul was intentional. Moving forward, though, this team is another team that has a big three that just seems like there's never drama here. They know how to win an NBA championship now. They just kind of play well together. Chris Middleton will go off any given night. Drew Holiday will too. Literally, they both combined for, I think, like 65 the other night. Everyone knows who Giannis Antetokounmpo is. Guy's a menace. You really can't even guard him if you wanted to. But the floor is so opened up now. His passing has gotten so much better than in the past. It used to just be kind of drive and kick and pray the shot goes in. But now they have a team full of shooters too. So this is one of those teams where you really don't know how to defend them. You really don't know how to guard them. They're just going to find ways to score, and you just got to kind of keep up. You can't give them an inch because they're just going to run with it. So another team that I think is going to be contenders, for a really long time with this roster that they have. I think they play really good basketball. They don't have really any problems over there. They enjoy the coaching staff. So high praise to these guys too. They just like to win games.
And at 5, but before we get in, shout out to Bud Light, Seltzer, hard sodas. Very good. If they see this video, please sponsor us. We like these. And, this Bulls team, I mean, if you don't make those offseason acquisitions, I think you're well under 500. Adding DeRozan, Vucevic, and Lonzo, just those three. That's not even all the moves they made. And they've just re-jolted this franchise. This Bulls team has been bottom of the league ever since D Rose tore his ACL, and that's been 10 years, which is crazy enough. But I think the biggest piece that no one's talking about is Ayo DeSumo. He's played in 42 games for this team, which is, everyone before. And now with Lonzo out, he's really going to have that big role. And we just saw last night him just absolutely ball out. And I think he's going to, be one of those interesting rookie of the year candidates because he's going to obviously have to play for at least 2 months start. And him and Kobe White are going to be fighting for minutes. But I think it'll be enough minutes to share around where they'll both get their looks. But, losing Lonzo was a huge loss for this Bulls team because we've seen how good his passing skills are and how much he gets everyone involved, especially Vucevic. His numbers may take a hit a little bit, but I think with the Bulls, only really having to deal with Milwaukee in the division, there's nothing really to write. You really panic about because the Cavs, they could be mildly inconsistent. We still honestly don't know about this Cavs team because they're just so young. And then you got the Pacers and Pistons to round it out. So I think the Bulls looking like a probably top 4 seed in the East at worst right now. Mm-hmm. But I think the key thing is just getting Lonzo back healthy and not rushing him back because you don't really need to rush him back. You guys are pretty much already set for a playoff run. And we'll see what they do at the trade deadline as well.
It's coming in 4th. We have the Miami Heat. You have Tyler Hero just exited, I think, safety protocols, which is huge for them. Guy's been playing really good basketball this year. Kyle Lowry with some nagging injuries, but same goes. That move is huge for these guys. And, shout out to Jimmy Buckets passing. I think it was the most triple doubles for the Miami Heat or something like that. It was a big remark. This team's legit. You still have Duncan Robinson, who's also one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. They're dangerous. This is a really, really good team. Bam Adebayo's coming back. They've been to the finals, call it, a bubble fraud, bubble finals, whatever you want to call it. They know how to win games. They know how to go on those long postseason runs. Kyle Lowry has a ring. This is going to be a contending team for sure. 10-4 since our last ranking. I wouldn't count this team out of the finals for sure. They definitely have the potential. They have the power. They have the shooters. You name it. These guys are solid. They're going to go out playing winning basketball just about every night. And when you have Jimmy Butler leading your team, they don't really put up with any nonsense over there. They're there to win games and strictly win games. It's a business. So we'll see what these guys can do in the postseason, but I'm expecting big things.
Don't forget about making coffee too. They're making coffee.
Right.
But the most surprising team of the year by far, and it's not even close, is this Memphis Grizzlies team. A play-in team last year to a potential top 2, top 3 seed team in the West. And Ja Morant, that's all you need to know. Ja Morant. If you are a casual basketball fan, just know Grizzlies have Ja Morant and he will get you a win. Averaging little over 25 a game, having career numbers, putting people on poster this year. He was a dark horse to win MVP this year, and I think he's kind of got it all but locked up at this point, it feels like, just because of how good this Grizzlies team has been. And they're young too, which is extremely good because they haven't been this good, at least in a long time. So I don't know. I didn't like when they lost Valanciunas, in the offseason, but they got Steven Adams and it was a good replacement, but it's been more than a replacement, it feels like. Really cultivating this team, and Xavier Tillman has been learning under Steven Adams, not really putting up those big numbers and big minutes a game, but that could be a name worth watching coming in the second half of the season. If they can easily make the playoffs, they might give some more minutes around. No reason to, try to win all these games if you're not really playing for seeding or anything. But I think, I don't know, this Grizzlies team, they could look scary, but we don't really know how they'll perform in the playoffs come playoffs because they're all young. Not a lot of have been there. But Jaren Jackson is going to be a tough man to stop in the playoffs just because he's so versatile. Ex-Michigan State player. I don't like talking about all the ex-Michigan State players, but you got to give credit where credit's due, and he's really been a star for this Grizzlies team and the right-hand man for John Morant.
Coming in second, we've got the Golden State Warriors. As expected, they'd be right around here. I think the only really thing to touch base on is Klay Thompson's return, which has been, you thought, wow, they're playing really good basketball. His return could either shake things up or he could just be the Klay Thompson that he is. I think it's been a mixture of both. This team's had to adjust a little bit. They've had to make some roster changes to fit him back into his role and slowly get him his minutes back up. But I think they're going to be perfectly fine. Curry's definitely been slumping shooting lately, which is rare. We don't really see that often from this guy. I think it was right around where he was about to hit the milestone. I think that's when he just kind of started throwing up shots and he was getting a little inconfident afterward. But, I'm not worried when it comes to the Golden State Warriors. They know how to win games more than any other team in the NBA. They know what it's like to be there. They know what it is to be in those positions. You still got Jordan Poole, but a bunch of upside here. This team's going to be perfectly fine. You're just pretty much relying Curry comes around, and I can't see this guy slumping for too long. Once he finds his jump shot, he has solidified himself as the best shooter in the NBA, maybe in history. I'm not worried about this team. They're going to be perfectly fine. Klay Thompson's going to get in his bag, and we'll see what they can do come postseason.
And at number one, staying at number one, you got the Phoenix Suns, and right now they don't have DeAndre Ayton, and they do have everyone else though. And Devin Booker has been, I don't know, could you say he's taken a step back? Maybe, but he hasn't really elevated his game numbers wise for the Suns team. But you know who has? Bridges. Bridges has. And I think last year in the playoffs, we started to see him come out, become the player that I think the Suns wanted him to be. And this year, he's only averaging, 12 points a game, but last year, I think it was 6, 7, something like that. Not as consistent as he is this year. So he's taken a huge step up this year. And surprisingly enough, who's filled the role for DeAndre Ayton? JaVale McGee.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Lakers undervalued him when he was in LA, just because, JaVale meme McGee, he was the meme of the league. It seemed like for at least 3-4 years. Comes to Phoenix and you never hear about the guy, but he's, budding into the best, secondhand big man in the league, averaging a little over 7 rebounds a game, really filling in for Ayton, doing well. But they haven't really hit their stride. I feel like this Suns team, because they still don't have Ayton, and Ayton in his prime with Booker and Chris Paul. Those three we saw last year, that finals run was pretty scary, and it just seemed like they can do whatever it takes to win. And that mentality, can get you a long way. They have that it factor. So no surprise here that they're at number one, but that is going to be it for our video today. If you guys like this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, let us know what you guys think about our rankings. And if you want us to do some more NBA content, let us know. Obviously we're putting out these power rankings, but we could do some other things like, award races, potential trades. We could draw up some trades if you guys would like that. Pick the all-star teams, do our own draft. But until the next video, the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.